What up, world? It's your boy Mark Walter Ward, Super Facts Show, Super Facts Network. Today we're joined with us by Shawn Setaro. Man, every time I have a name pronunciation, I always have like a hang up on it. I bet you I can say it a million times right off camera. You can go pre-order his book, Dummy Boy, the story of Tekashi 6ix 9ine and the Nine Trey Bloods. That will be coming out. Did you say December 21st?
December 21st, yeah.
All right, well, thank you for joining me. I appreciate having you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Mark. I'm really happy to be here. I'm really looking forward to talking this story with someone who knows, a bunch about it, including, like we were saying before we started, some of the prehistory of the whole thing.
Well, I know a lot about Bird Gang because I'm a humongous Dipset fan, and then my foray into rap journalism was as a blogger, Drank and Dank, and my first interview ever was Noe, and because he's from Baltimore, who it's neither here nor there, though, who I've always considered one of the top 3 lyricists in the whole Dipset collective. So when you're writing this book about 6ix 9ine, and I know you met some of these people, and you're in court and everything, and you've witnessed them, and you've seen all the transcripts of writing, social media. Do you find anybody to be likable?
That's a great first place to start at. And I will tell you that, like, yes, definitely, some of the people I talk to, like, look, it's hard when you're sitting down talking to someone like you and I are talking, especially if your job's to like interview them and hear their story. Almost everyone comes off as likable in that context, right? People are talking, they want to tell you, their part in this whole thing. And so, the people I interviewed, sure, in the moment, definitely had liked a lot of them. Some of them I still have sort of, fun feelings towards. Obviously, you want to maintain, some degree of distance because you're not their friend, right? You're interviewing for a podcast or for a book or whatever. But yeah, definitely I found, a number of people involved likable. But as you're hinting with that question, a lot of people in this story did many terrible things, and that can be sometimes hard to wrap your brain around, right? Seeing someone in person, in court, or wherever, and trying to wrap your head around, they shot at someone or slashed someone or whatever it is.
Oh, that's a perfect segue. Since you bring up the shooting, there was at least 10 shootings involved in this whole chain of events, right? If not more, right?
I mean, there were a whole lot. I don't know. I'd have to, count them, but it's funny. I was just listening to I'm going through right now, the audiobook version of it, read by Dion Graham, who's just a fantastic narrator. And so I've been kind of going over, detail by detail, all of the shootings in this. And yeah, there were a lot, including ones that weren't really very well known at all until, all the arrests and the trial happened.
So the question I want to ask you is, and please look at the chat in a minute, why can't they shoot? I mean, we got one girl that got hit in the foot.
In the foot, right?
Unfortunately for her, I'm not trying to make light of her situation. But no one else got touched, and I just don't see how that's possible. Like, as you said in the book, it's miraculous, but like I feel like you could do better than that by accident.
I mean, look, there were a lot of shootings. Some of them, as I explained in the book, weren't intended to hurt anybody. Like the Chief Keef shooting was always intended just to scare him. So it was intentionally shot, well over his head at the, marquee of the hotel he was staying at.
Man, that shit ain't scare him. You think Chief Keef's scared by a bullet in a building 20 feet above him?
I mean, that was the plan. I can't say whether it was effective or not. Obviously, Shadi didn't think it was that effective because he cut the guy's fee in half. Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of these shootings happened, and obviously the shooting at Barclays was at the ceiling, meant more to, scatter people than to hit anyone. But in some of the other situations you're talking about, where people shot at cars or whatever, or, sometimes at people, they were done in really chaotic situations. These are not like shooting range conditions, right? You're firing into a car while you're at a red light and then you speed off immediately afterwards or whatever. Or, you you're sort of a car's running toward, driving towards you and you're trapped in the other way and you just sort of kneel down and let it fly. It's sort of like, I think a mix of shooting at someone with the intent to hurt them and shooting at them with the intent to like intimidate them just by the mere fact of gunfire. So, I think whoever was shooting, in a lot of cases it was shoddy, it was sort of like a win-win either way.
Yeah, I guess temporarily.
Right.
So what's your opinion of Adam from No Jumper? I want to say I want to say this delicately because I don't have any animosity towards him. I don't know him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious. Do you believe that he has good intentions in the hip hop world?
I mean, I think that Adam is someone like Adam has been great in terms of like, he has always made himself accessible when we were curious about something, whether it was about his meeting with Tekashi or, the podcast we just finished about YNW Melly. He was very open about his experience meeting Melly and what that was like and seeing Melly in Los Angeles as he was kind of coming to fame. Yeah, I mean, look, I think Adam has just a gift at finding people before they blow up. I don't know how he does it. I wish I could do it. I'd be a lot further along in my career if I had, this sense and the ear to the ground he had. And I think he like, if you talk to the rappers he's spoken to, a lot of them like really feel like he gave them that early leg up in their careers. I can't speak to his intentions. Again, I've only ever, spoken to him a couple times. I don't know what's in his heart of hearts or whatever, but it seems like he has given a lot of aspiring people a platform before they really had one anywhere else.
Well, good. I'm real close with this artist, Just Rich Gates, who just started getting coverage on No Jumper. He was in the original Brick Squad Mafia, and to be honest with you, I wasn't too hip, and I didn't know what to make of him, so I was just curious.
Mm-hmm.
So you were talking about when Tekashi first went out there. That's when he was still doing the SoundCloud music, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's when he was still in kind of his, like, as he calls it, like a rock and roll rap phase.
Okay, rock and roll. I didn't know how to phrase that. Before we get to that though, 60 years from now, do you think that the SoundCloud era will matter? Like when they do like those little musical history books, will it get more than 5 pages? Because if you think about it, what did it produce? It produced Lil Yachty, I mean Soulja Boy's MySpace, I guess Dram, but I can't think of too many like big time legacy acts that really came out of SoundCloud. I
mean, I think you have X, right? X, XXXTentacion and Juice WRLD are sort of the two people from that era who, in both cases, because of their untimely passing, I think will have, people will remember their stuff for a long time. And, people may or may not remember the larger movement. We got into this a bit in the podcast, kind of the history of SoundCloud rap and Space Ghost Perp and some of his like proteges and stuff like that and how that kind of all started. But I think X and Juice WRLD will probably remain the biggest things to come out of that movement, which now I think, as you sort of intimated, has sort of changed and moved on to something else.
Definitely. So what happens to Tekashi if he never links up with the Nine Trey Bloods and and I know obviously you don't know for sure, but just your speculation. If he just keeps making the punk rock or the rock rap that they liked in Eastern Europe, do you think he ever gets big enough that he can live off music solely?
This guy had in his head that, me plus street gang equals success. And, as I detail in the book, he tried it with Crips and it didn't fly. His sort of mentor at the time, Scumlord Dizzy, said, we're not gonna do that. I'm not gonna let you have a bunch of guys in blue bandanas in your video. So, he found a group that would let him do it. And if that group didn't exist or didn't let him do it, he probably would have just kept looking until he found the next group that would let him have blue or red or orange or whatever bandanas in the next music video. I think, you know, he probably would have just kept looking.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your perceived, unless you've actually seen him fight, Tekashi's ability to fight?
I mean, look, I saw, you know, the same thing everyone had seen, which is the very end of the airport video, right? The fight at LAX, where he kind of jumps in after it's basically almost done.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, look, when he was famous, he was in a position where he had people to do the fighting for him at places like Yams Day or places like LAX or.
Yeah, but if you're a blood,
you know,
you ain't always got somebody to do the fighting for you. What
I mean,
whether you what was it? Either you play with the shits or you're grinding. I mean,
right, yeah.
Even if you're grinding, you might end up in a jail cell full of a bunch of, well, in New York it don't matter, but you know, rival gang members, I guess in New York, rival blood factions. And but I mean, at some point, if you live that lifestyle, you're probably gonna have to fight.
Yeah, I mean, look, we never, you know, maybe he got a chance to find out. I certainly don't know everything that happened to him during his, you know, year, 13 months of fame, but you know, I don't know. I can't say. I don't say I feel comfortable speculating, but I would say, like, definitely he had, you know, as I detail in the book, he had people who would punch someone in the face for him if he needed it. So, you know, take from that what you will, I guess.
Do you remember Stitches?
Yes.
I was around a bunch of people that were in civic organizations when Stitches came out, and I was also they liked orange. They were real wavy. And I was around a bunch of people that were involved in civic institutions when Tekashi came out. They really liked red. And that shit offended them to their fucking core. Like the first time, I don't know which one was worse, Tekashi with the rainbow hair to them or Stitches, just because the shit was so ridiculous. But I mean, they would get like visibly angry looking at that shit. Like to me, it was almost unfathomable. Like when you said he would keep looking for gangs, my first thought was like, that might not have ended well. Like it might have been serendipitous. He might have found like the exact right one.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps, but like these guys were, you know, it was a very give and take relationship, right? They
but
very
man,
early
first, what
on,
he do? He gave 2 bottles of Hennessy and some food, right? How they know? They didn't know it was gonna blow up like that.
No, but like as soon as they figured out that this video was gonna blow up, you know, he got into, you know, he sort of had a buy-in from a member of the gang who, you know, whose best friend was managing him, right? So there was sort of that personal connection at first. And yeah, shoot a video. So what? Okay, maybe something will come of it, you know, free liquor, we get to have a barbecue, it'll be fun, you know, whatever. But as soon as it blows up, you know, they, especially Shadi, sensed a real opportunity and rushed to take advantage of it. And I don't think they would be the only ones.
Why do you think there was never, before the trial or the arrest, really, why do you think there was never a Jim Jones collabo with Tekashi? I was always curious about, because you know what got my attention from the beginning? I mean, I got a picture of the Gummo house up behind me and a picture of Mel Matrix or Mel Murda. I mean, like I'm a huge Mel Matrix fan. And
you peeped that I talked to DJ Big Mike for the podcast there.
Did you?
Yeah, we talked to DJ Big Mike about Mel's mixtape. It's only like a minute, but just to, you know, sort of get some background about Mel.
He had like 3 of them. He was one of the few people that were on the, let's say, I don't want to disparage anybody, but that was on the lesser side of Dipset that had multiple camera features. But you know, back to the question, why did Jim Jones never do a song with Tekashi? I mean, I know you might not know it specifically, but that always seemed odd to me.
Yeah, I mean, look, they were together in public at least once, right? I forget the situation, which party it was or whatever, but there's, you know, there's photos of them together, and obviously Jim knew all of the people. Nuke had actually played Tekashi's music for Cameron early on as well.
Really?
Yeah. So
what was his reaction?
I mean, I think he was like, that's cool, you know, go for it. you know, and not, he obviously didn't move heaven and earth to get involved or anything. But yeah, I mean, look, I think, I don't know. I mean, Jim, one thing that I tried to set out in the book is Jim handles gang stuff in a very sort of traditional way for rap, right? He hints at things. He says things without saying them. He, you know, throws up little, if you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't type stuff in his lyrics, in his interviews, and how he poses in photos, all of that kind of stuff. It's very, you know, inside baseball-y.
No, you're right, definitely.
And Tekashi didn't care about any of that. He just said, I'm a Nine Trey gangster at every possible opportunity. And so, you know, I don't know, but I would assume that something about that clashing of styles meant maybe Jim kept a little distance. You know, that would be my guess.
That makes sense. What you know, when you're talking about sticking to tradition, what do you think of the whole no snitching thing?
So that's a good question. And I would say that, like, what I think about snitching is not really important. I would say that, like, honestly, who cares? What to me was interesting about it was a couple things. Was first, like, was uncovering the different layers people had about what they thought snitching was. I definitely came across people in the book who had a couple different attitudes, right? One was, if you tell on people with whom you were in a set or committed a specific crime or whatever, you know, that's snitching.
I agree. I totally agree with that one.
I came across other people who said, if you know, tell the cops or the courts anything about any kind of crime, whether you were directly involved or not, that's snitching.
I think that's bullshit, because all those people that say that, what if their daughter got raped and they didn't have a chance to, you know, mete out vigilante justice? What if their kid was getting abused at school? Mm-hmm. You know, I'm sure they called the police.
Mm-hmm. So I would say, you know, you could argue Tekashi did both those things, right? Sort of violated it by, you know, he snitched by any, you know, reasonable definition of the word, right? And he did it publicly and sort of admitted to it. You know, he had the rap motif in his first video, and, you know, played the Cops theme song on his first Instagram live after he got out of jail. But even he realizes that snitch is like this big, powerful, ugly word that you don't want to be associated with. So at a certain point, he started saying, well, I didn't snitch. And his argument was, because they betrayed me first.
Right.
And so his argument kind of became, well, if the gang betrayed me by robbing me, kidnapping me, you know, he argues sleeping with his, you know, girlfriend, like, then that was the real betrayal, and what he did didn't count as snitching. So he sort of tries to invent this way where, despite literally being in court and saying, you know, here are the guys, that somehow doesn't count as snitching. That's what was interesting about it to me, not what Shawn Setaro, think snitching is, because, like, you know,
gotcha.
Who cares? Yeah,
man, he should have read the terms of service, because he was supposed to see them in jail if he's a Nine Trey gangster. Mm-hmm. You know,
well, he was in, I mean, you know this, I think, but he was in a separate, you know, small private prison in Queens almost the entire time.
No. I mean, he's supposed to not. If he has an issue with what they did to him, according to the gang rules, he's not supposed to snitch on him. He's supposed to take his time too, and then see him in prison for whatever he has his issue with. Mm-hmm. You know, like,
I mean, look, he was at that point, you know, 23, 24 by the time it's all played out, year-old guy who had just met all these people who all had known each other for decades. And, you know, he was facing, you know, initially, I think 47 years to life in prison. So, his argument essentially was like, what would you do, facing down the barrel of that metaphorical gun?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't have been in no dumbass situation like that, but I mean, yeah, I mean, he can justify that shit however he wants.
Mhm.
Why do you think that out of everybody in Nine Trey, Mel Matrix had the most experience in the music industry? Why wasn't he the one to run his career?
Sure. I mean, I think in large part because Shadi, was so aggressive from the get-go, right? Shadi was the one who knew I mean, I guess they all knew each other in that kind of Bed-Stuy area. Mel is Miss Treyway's half brother, if I remember right. So they all knew each other, but Shadi from the word go was set up to Tekashi as, this is the big homie. This is the guy you need to talk to before you can shoot the video. And he just sat there on the step like the king of the block. And so from the very beginning, I think Tekashi had this idea that was sort of inculcated in him by the people around, that like, this is the big guy. This is the guy you have to go through. So of course, if that guy expresses interest and starts showing up at the studio and, starts giving you the okay, you're going to want to, model yourself after him and hang out with him and go to him for protection. Mel was a little more in the background. And then, as I go into the book, once Mel Murda came home, and I think it was February of 2018, Mel was essentially pushed a lot further in the background in terms of the gang's kind of day-to-day operations.
That's so ironic, because have you ever heard Mel Murda's music?
A little bit while I was researching for the podcast. It's been a while.
It seemed like just the projects that you can find online, it made a big deal of having Mel Murda on them. That was like the biggest thing. Mel Murda was okay. Did you ever hear Foo Banger?
Again, I think a feature or two in that kind of like Bird Gang.
He's terrible. He is absolutely terrible.
Mel is really good. I liked listening to Mel's stuff, which I did again while making the podcast and stuff. Like he did the mixtape with Big Mike, DJ Big Mike. Red Apple's Falling.
And then he's got the Matrix Reloaded. Both of those, at least one of those is on Dat Piff. Nice. I think he's severely underrated as an artist. I think his life might have worked out better if he if he was having financial issues, maybe he struggled through that a little bit and focused on music more.
Yeah, I mean, look, Jim Jones certainly still thinks that Mel is really talented. I talked to Jim about Mel. A little bit of that ended up in the podcast and in the book. He has a real great affection for Mel and does correctly, I think he's a really talented artist and tried to help him in the music business.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's only so much you can do, right? Yeah. So Jorge, the driver who ended up being a cooperating witness, he got picked up by ICE, but later on in the book, you said he was, I can't remember the exact amount of time, but he was facing a pretty significant amount of time if he didn't cooperate. For what? For accessory? Or did he have another life?
No, it was, I mean, he drove people to an armed robbery and they knew it, and then drove them home, helped them escape. Like, these are pretty serious things. As a part of his plea deal, he eventually had to admit to other stuff, including that he ended up with the gun after the shooting at Barclays Center. He just like had the jacket with the gun in it. It wasn't caught at the time, but he had to admit it. And so that figured in also into the potential sentence he was facing. And there was all kinds of stuff. So, but yeah, I would say primarily like, he drove a lot of people to do a lot of stuff. There wasn't any kind of like secret life beyond that.
Have you ever personally spoke to 6ix 9ine?
Yes, actually, I have. So
what was your impression of him?
My impression is there was not really a difference between the guy I spoke to where we tried unsuccessfully to set up an interview and the guy you saw on Instagram.
Got you.
From what I'm told from his friends, there's a different Danny who's shy and respectful and nice and, will open doors for ladies and all this kind of stuff. But that's not who I saw in my few phone calls with him, which again, were to set up an interview that never ended up happening. I saw that character.
Do you have any sympathy for him?
That is a complicated question. I will say at times, sure. And in aspects, sure. I always want to be clear when talking about him that, you know, he did some really, really bad things. And I'm not talking about snitching again, you know, where I stand on that immaterial.
Miss Melina.
What's that?
Miss Melina.
Yeah, yeah. I'm talking about
every
the
time I felt
abuse.
sorry for him. In your book, sometimes I'd feel sorry for him, but then I'd remember that.
Yeah, you have to remember that. Like he admitted to domestic abuse. We know, you know, Sarah claims specifically shared details and photos of one incident or one alleged incident in Dubai. That I think there's, you know, some really good evidence that what she says about it is true. You know, I've talked to other people who were around on that trip.
Well, then you said in his 5K letter there was a redacted, or maybe it was.
Yeah, there was a section where he admitted to abuse during the whole period they were together. You know, the whole, you know, years long period they were together. That he admitted.
So it's not even alleged. It's pretty much confirmed.
Yeah, he definitely committed domestic abuse. He admitted to that. We don't know specifics, which is why I said alleged about the Dubai incident, because, you know, he didn't admit to specifically that. Actually, no, I take that back. He did admit in an interview that he beat her up on that trip. So yeah, we know that, and then there were years worth of other incidents. So I want to say that. I also want to say, you know, that the 2015 incident involving the young girl, also terrible. So, you know, I don't want to forget that he did things that are really terrible outside of whatever snitching and rap crimes and whatever, right? That said, yeah, look, looking into his life and, you know, hearing all the interviews, speaking to all the people who knew him, you know, meeting his biological dad, like, and seeing what a, you know, sad situation that whole thing was, like, it's hard not to feel at least a little sympathy for someone who saw the man they thought was their father, you know, die, you know, saw his like comatose body in front of him and feels, however incorrectly, some responsibility for that. Someone who grew up really, really poor, someone who, you know, like, there are a lot of bad things that happened. And so,
I mean, you gotta do bad though. I mean, you know, I ain't never said this shit before. My mother kidnapped me from my father. She was a heroin addicted stripper when I was 6 months, when I was younger than 6 months old. He had custody of her. She lied and said that he was abusing me. He wasn't. She took me to Mexico and tried to sell me to a snuff film. She left my father's lawyer's business card in the room that she just abandoned me in. And then the hotel lady called the number, and my father and my grandmother came to Mexico to get me. I had diaper sores or diaper rash from my ankles to my neck. And, you know, I don't want nobody playing the world's biggest or smallest violin for me. But that ain't never caused me to hit nobody. My godmother who raised me got murdered. You know, I ain't never hit a chick. You know, like I just don't see the correlation. Like when they had the Catholic priest thing, they would say, you know, about with the kids, they would say, well, maybe they shouldn't be abstinent. And I'm like, well, when did that become the go-to for when you're forced abstinent? Or
no, you raise a really good point, which is like, if everyone who had a tough childhood did unforgivable things, the world would be in a far even worse place than it is, right? So I will say that, like, you're right about that, absolutely. But like, I will say, I think we've all been in situations where we get into something over our heads, and, you know, that's the feeling of this story. Now, when Tekashi is over his head, he makes excuses and then squeaks by and then goes in and gets over his head again. So you lose sympathy after maybe the second or third time. But right. Yeah, there are moments in the story certainly where, you know, like I said, it's a push and pull. You feel for him, then you remember the terrible stuff. And, you know, that was one of the things that was so captivating that kind of kept me coming back to find more and more levels of like what really happened. Because remember, you know, by the time it went to trial, he said everything that happened, but before that, up until September 2019, I was getting it piece by piece, talking to this person around him, that person around him, this court document, that court document, kind of getting the whole story, so that by the time he testified, I knew, almost everything, with one or two small exceptions. So it was that like uncovering that really drove me during most of the process.
If it's either or neither, do you think that Tekashi is addicted to, I guess, going viral, or is he a sociopath, or is it neither?
Do
you know what cluster B personality traits are?
No, I don't. I do know, what the sociopath is, and I don't think he is one. I feel like, he has some actual feelings, and is not like a sociopath in the clinical sense. Although, again, like, I shouldn't diagnose from afar. I've only ever talked to him on the phone
you think
once.
He has real feelings of guilt and remorse?
I don't think he feels remorse for anything he's done in this situation. No, absolutely not. And he's been very clear about that. Gotcha. With the exception of the occasional like pleading to the judge at the very, during his sentencing and all that, but I think he very quickly afterwards revealed that he doesn't feel bad, and in fact feels like it's someone else's fault. But so what was the other thing you said? A sociopath or
addicted to fame?
I think he is absolutely addicted to going viral.
And I mean like real addiction, like withdrawal type addiction. Like how people get, like how teenagers get with this if you take your cell phone away from them.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know if there's like a physical or, physiological component to it. But yeah, I think he's definitely addicted to attention. And you can see that now, right? Even now when, he got out of prison after, comparatively not that long, and, got a chance to start life over. He turned down witness protection and continues to try and be a public figure, released an album that didn't do great. Now he's like doing YouTube videos, he can't leave, and he's, consistently trolling rappers, right?
Right.
He can't leave that behind. He's trying the same tricks again and again.
Did you listen to the Whack 100 interview?
Yes, I did, actually.
Did you think that there was anything outside of spectacle that came out of it that was worthwhile?
No, not too much. I think there were like one or two things, I forget now, but there were one or two like, oh, I didn't quite realize that things. But I think a lot of it was, just tangents, right? Tangents and speculation and stuff like that. I don't think there was, despite the fact that it was 3 hours long, I don't think there was that much substance in it.
Out of curiosity, again, of course, there's no way that you can know this, but what do you think Harv would think of Whack 100 interviewing a snitch?
I mean, Harv is one of the most interesting characters in the book.
He got the most integrity in a way.
I mean, he was.
He had a code and he abided by it.
Yes, I will. Yes, that is definitely true.
That's what I mean by integrity. Not like moral integrity.
Right. He had his beliefs, which are, I am a Nine Trey gangster. That means something. That means that, I put on for my set no matter the circumstances. Throw me against 100 Crips in a jail cell, I don't care. I'm going to be who I am and fight my way out of it. He really believes that. And that was what he aspired to, according to him, from the beginning, right? His whole life, I wanted to be a Nine Trey gang, wanted to be a gangster the right way, never wanted nothing else. I'm paraphrasing a text he sent at one point.
They should make a Goodfellas out of him. It could lead off with that. All my life, I wanted to be a Nine Trey gangster.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, I think he would think it was, exploitive in the same way that he thought Shadi, like, being loud and yelling at strip clubs in order to try to get a better seat or whatever was show offy and bad. I think he would, probably does feel that way about Whack. Harv, of course, has its own problems. I don't know if you saw, but he just got caught up in was just accused of being part of a jail smuggling ring when he was in federal jail in Manhattan. So he's in the middle of, he just got indicted for that not that long ago.
What were they allegedly smuggling?
Phones, drugs, things like that.
Oh, well, I mean, you know, there's a big difference to what happens when you get caught with phones and when you get caught with drugs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the cases, I don't have the, I mean, I could look up the indictment. I don't have it immediately on me. But yes, there were a bunch of people involved, allegedly, and he was one of them who was indicted for it.
And then he was mad at Mel Matrix for telling one of the founders, Magoo, to suck his dick. Why did Mel Matrix tell Magoo to suck his dick? That was
Nuke who was mad about it. Nuke also was a sort of Nine Trey true believer. He joined it when he was, I think, maybe 11 or 13 or something like that, as kind of a junior member. He was hanging out with some older guys. And he and Mel had a very long rivalry that, like you said, started over the fact that Mel insulted Magoo. I forget exactly why that happened, or maybe it wasn't exactly spelled out why in the stuff I was able to look into. You know, the Nine Trey sort of mythology got really deep. But, you know, that was something that Nuke just couldn't abide by. That's not something you tell, you know, the leader of your gang. And that started a sort of long running set of skirmishes between them.
They must both be some tough motherfuckers to survive all of them.
Yeah. I mean, definitely.
And so you met a lot of these guys, right?
I mean, met is a strong word. I would say.
You were in their presence.
Yeah, definitely. I had a little bit of interaction with Harv, you know, but all these guys are surrounded by marshals and all kinds of stuff. So it's not like there's like.
So you didn't see him like in the club or nothing when Tekashi was active, or in his first?
Oh, in the first phase? No, not really. You know, as I elaborate in the book, I ran into Tekashi at the Complex office pretty early on. Academics had brought him by just to try to introduce him to the writers and say, this is my guy, he's up next, whatever. But no, I didn't really see the guys, or if I did, I didn't clock them as, you know, being part of his entourage or whatever. I had seen Tekashi perform at some Dipset show, some Dipset reunion that I think he did like one or two songs where he was opening up. So I guess everyone was there, but I was just in the audience. I didn't, you know, come across anyone that day. Why
do you think in court he referred to Jim Jones as a retired rapper? Because he heard the phone call and he was mad?
Yes, I 100% think that's it. It seemed very clear that it was his way of getting a dig in.
Shit, I take Jim Jones' career over Tekashi's any day of the week. You know, the Kingston Imperial, you know, they set over this outstanding packet.
Great.
I've seen these before, but never one this in depth. And, you know, I ain't never had nobody write a question for me. But it has a list of things that you can touch on. And one of these I find to be incredibly interesting. So I'd like to finish, well, we'll finish with telling your socials and where to get the book at. But I'd like to finish with, what does this story tell us about America in the age of Donald Trump? Because I can definitely see some correlation between Tekashi and Donald Trump's social media presence and their preferred method of interaction with people they disagree with.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. Look, I think this story only could have happened in Trump's America. And there's a couple ways in which that's true. First, you know, I'm sure I don't have to tell you that Nine Trey is primarily a African-American gang, right? There are not there, and was in fact started because of tensions with Latin gangs in Rikers, or a Latin gang in Rikers Island.
Which is so ironic because their most famous member is half Latino.
Right. But, you know, that said, like, so having a guy who is Mexican be a Nine Trey member, you know, was one of the things that got people who are a little more on the inside sort
Oh,
of
I didn't even
looking
think of
a
that.
little
No bullshit.
askance, right?
Yeah.
Looking
Yeah.
a little like, is this a real deal? What's happening? Why are they hanging around him? How this relates to Trump is, of course, like Trump was president at the time Tekashi was blowing up, and his rhetoric was build the wall. You know, we got to wall ourselves off from Mexico, stop the invasion at the border. And so what does Tekashi do in his first video? He wears a giant green Mexico soccer jersey.
Right.
Right. So they knew, his manager, the gang, everybody knew what was going on. They knew what they were playing with when they had him in this video. Also, yeah, I mean, Donald Trump rose to power by using social media and by antagonizing people, right? Yeah. Was he telling the truth? No. Did he care? No. He would just say whatever was advantageous in the moment in a way meant to rile people up. And right. That is exactly what Tekashi did. And he caught, you know, a public appetite for that. And I think it's, you know, it's not coincidental that the first album he released in a sort of a new era post-election, I think maybe the world has lost a little bit of its taste for that.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. Do you think his career has viability going forward?
Look, I would never underestimate this guy. You know, certainly it seems like, you know, last album didn't do so good, but, you know, maybe he has a future as a YouTuber, maybe as a Twitch streamer, like one of his producers suggested to me, you know, who maybe he'll have a comeback as an artist. I would never underestimate him. Certainly he got our attention before, and maybe he can do it again.
Well, that seems like the perfect place to end it. Where can they find you on social media? And obviously you can pre-order Complex's Shawn Setaro's Dummy Boy, Tekashi 6ix 9ine.
Yeah, you can pre-order Complex Presents Dummy Boy, Tekashi 6ix 9ine, and the Nine Trey Gangsta Bloods, as you mentioned, published by Kingston Imperial. Anywhere you get books, it'll be out on December 21st, but please pre-order it early, Amazon or anywhere else. And so check that out. You can find me on Twitter at Same Old Shawn. That's SHAWN. Sort of subtle Jay-Z nod, or not so subtle, in my Twitter handle there.
Gotcha.
And yeah, so follow me, say hi, say you love the interview, hated the interview, whatever. And yeah, that's where you can find me.
Hey, hold on, Same Old Shawn. I gotta ask you real quick. If you take away Reasonable Doubt and Blueprint, what's the best Jay-Z album?
If you take those away, yeah, you're saying.
I'm going with Volume 2.
Volume 3, I would say, for me.
That's strong. The Juvenile song it was especially impressive to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's just got some of his best rapping on it for me. Yeah. And it's an aggressive Jay that we don't see anymore, right? Yeah. I mean, he can't do that anymore for a bunch of reasons, but it's sort of this last gasp of real, like, you know, aggressive street Jay in a way that, you know, while still having just this incredible, super smart rapping.
Not to mention some Timberland production. You never go wrong there.
And those Timberland beats, absolutely.
All right, well, brother, well, thank you for your time. And, you know, anytime you put anything out, let me know. I'd love to do more episodes and support everything you do. Like I said, I greatly enjoyed the book. Anyone who doesn't get this is doing themselves a disservice if they have an interest in rap, culture, trolling, social media. The book touches on so many themes. And I don't know if I said this, but it's despite having so much material, it's a very light read. It's very entertaining. He wrote it almost as if it was a fiction book, as far as it is presented with a clear, easy to follow narrative.
Thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate that. It's definitely what I tried to do. As you know, all this stuff, the gang world, the rap world is like so intricate and so detailed. So I didn't want to lose the complexity, but I also didn't want to have people remember a million names and get lost and whatever. So I'm glad that I succeeded in that. Thanks so much for having me.
No doubt. Again, let me know if you need anything, and you have a great day, brother.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, and this will be out tonight, so.
Oh, all right. Send me the link. We got it.
Yes, sir. All right. You have a good one.
All right. You too. Take care.
Peace.